So Tampa Bay's explosive rental growth sparks battles in neighborhoods. Drew Harwell from the Times wrote an article about this, and I saw 3 or 4 releases about it while I was on vacation. It's interesting because the reason why I kind of picked the article up and found it interesting is because when we traveled on vacation this time for the first time, we rented an apartment. We didn't get a hotel. We went on Airbnb, which is a website where you can go on and find, people renting out, their homes or their condos or their apartments. And it was kind of surprising because I thought it was a pretty cool process, a pretty smooth process. I thought that the place that we rented was great, and it was a way better value than a hotel. And I started thinking about, why we didn't see more of this in Tampa Bay, because I didn't feel like we had seen much, of this in Tampa Bay. However, I talked to a couple of our agents this week, and this past week, each of them has had inquiries from people wanting to buy homes down here that they would rent out as a vacation property. Now, there's some great things that happen with that is that one, it creates home sales and brings in investment money and kind of helps the economy. The downside is there are a lot of neighborhoods where the neighbors, the HOAs, the local governments have a lot of problems with this, in that they're not excited about turning great family neighborhoods into short-term rental neighborhoods. And I wanted to ask you, Adam. Obviously, there's people out there that and the same thing happens with a foreclosure in the neighborhood, or neighbors are always concerned about their own value. They want to make sure to protect the integrity of their neighborhood, and they're wanting to take legal action. And I would assume it's going to be challenging for them to do that.
They're very limited on what they can do. It really depends on what the terms of their HOA say. If it's a violation of the deed restrictions or something along those lines, maybe. But if it's just a general, normal neighborhood, chances are you really can't do anything.
Yeah, and again, it's and that's where I think the application and the fear is in some of the higher end neighborhoods. You get some of the neighborhoods out there, and then enforcement. How do you really, if someone does do this, right, and they're only renting it for a 7-day to 10-day period, by the time you'd actually catch them, the person's gone and it's not rented anymore. It's not like, we see in neighborhoods a lot of times where you're not allowed to rent a property. Well, that's easy. If you rent it to somebody for a year or two, mail's gonna come there, and utility services are gonna be in someone other than the owner's name. I mean, that's gonna be easy to find out. This is completely opposite to police. It would take a force of a lot of people and a lot of tax dollars to really go after, because they're concerned, the local governments, not only are they concerned about the integrity of the neighborhood, they're concerned about the taxes. They want to get because short-term rentals have a different tax rate to them, but collecting that and determining that is going to be a real challenge. And that's, kind of the element that I see the concern from the government. The concern from the citizens is, I'm going to have these people partying for a week. I'm going to have, people in my neighborhood harming my neighborhood that don't have any attachment to it. So they want to, take action or politic to limit it. But it's just like anything. I remember when the hedge funds came to town. Everyone talked about the good and the bad. There's going to be good and bad with just about everything. But the good of this, like I said, is that it's a monster market opportunity for people to come in, buy property, help our local economy. But of course, they're going to rent it out to vacation people. So they're turning homes, in essence, into hotels. In my experience, was really a smooth one. It was great, and it was a good option for me to be able to travel somewhere. We traveled to Southern California and rented an apartment instead of a hotel. And the photos, the video, all the material that's out there today, it's surprising that more people don't do it. Compared to, a hotel, for example. So any other legal things you can think about there, Adam?
Well, I mean, it just gets difficult because number one, you have to be able to prove that's exactly what they're doing. They're changing people in and out on a weekly basis. And if the people aren't being disruptive in any way, shape, or form, how's that really affecting you?
I think a lot of it's more concern from the neighbors, more concern that, Justin Bieber's going to show up next door and throw some house party for 3 weeks. Some of the neighbors might like that, but at the same time, I think that, that's more the concern, and I think it's a concern until it proves valid, until, you have a guy that's bringing in disruptive people and harming the neighborhood or not taking care of a house. you know, you could probably spend your time, you know, on something else.
And I think you're gonna have a stronger case to argue against it if you're in a restricted neighborhood where maybe you have a gate you have to get through, so you've gotta get people new passes, and then that code's going around, something along those lines. But if it's an open, normal neighborhood, like many of our neighborhoods in Florida, you're just gonna have a really hard time proving that that's exactly what's going on, especially if they're not problematic. Like, I'm sure you weren't problematic when you were there.
No, we were sitting, you know, in the place we were at was super quiet. I mean, we had Justin Bieber over for a house party and all of his little rapper buddies, and you know, we were doing keg stands outside in the pool area. No, I'm just kidding, but no, it was interesting that the area that we were in, it was cool because you had this little, you know, they had all this little walk, you know, you could walk to places, and it was very quiet and safe, and I liked it a lot better than staying in a hotel. So I could see the application of it. John, it kind of brings up a point, and we've talked about this on the show a couple times. So you've got this, you know, surplus of people now that are, it appears, at least from talking to a few of my buyer agents, that we've had several inquiries from people outside of Tampa Bay wanting to buy homes and do this and get their own usage out of it. So, you know, one of the elements of people doing this is if they don't have cash, you know, buying a vacation home or a rental home is a different element from financing. What does it look like? Let's say there's a guy in Illinois and he wants to, you know, buy a property and do this with it. What does that look like from a financing perspective?
We're going to look at that as an investment property, and they're going to look at a minimum of 15% down.
But that's
So-
still
so
not,
not-
it's
oh,
not,
no,
no,
that's
I
right,
mean,
yeah.
you know, I remember a few years ago it was up to like 25% down, so
25%,
that's
yeah.
loosened up some.
Absolutely, yeah.
So 25% down, and rates, how do rates for an investment property compare to rates for, you know, a traditional mortgage?
Some of that's going to depend on the credit score also, but, you know, if you said like a 20% down payment on a property with a pretty high credit score, you're looking about a 0.5% difference in rate, so not dramatic.
And as far as if they were using it for their own second home but not renting it out, then it's also, I think, different, correct?
Well, it gets into, again, an occupancy and intent. So if you're telling me it's your second home, but the intent's really to rent it.
But if your second home, it's truly your second home. Like if they're not renting it out, the rates are.
Oh, right,
yeah.
right. If it's a second home, then you could put as little as 10% down, and that's a standard rate. There's really no price difference between a primary and a second home.
So the interest rates would be the same. It's the investment and the intent to use it as a rental that causes the rate increase and the change in down payments.
Yes.